technically you're weakly analogous with like your feces, but that's not a great description of your feces, and you, right? Like that's not a great description of you. Okay, so procreate.
Yeah, I have a
not procreate.
100% chance of stopping myself being struck by lightning to never leave the house. I'm also not okay with me being struck by lightning.
Okay, so do you think you have as much control over being struck by lightning as you do over your genitals?
What?
How much control do you have over? Do you want to be PP the lightning rod? So look, all I'm asking you is from your perspective, right? Your perspective philosophy.
So you wanted to discuss specifically a new proposition you have for us, isn't that right?
Well, it's not that new. It's the same one from over a year ago. I messaged it to you, and you answered yes, then no on the flowchart. And that would arrive in, and it arrived in, it's sort of notoriously, like on my channel, it's notorious because, and hilarious because you landed in perspective philosophy, PP the hurricane on the flowchart because you thought you had as much control over your genitals as you did over the a hurricane slamming into my house.
I don't think so. I don't remember saying that.
Oh, it was in the back and forth text. On Instagram. There's a document of it. It's like titled Master's Degree in Philosophy versus Antinatalism or something on my channel, something along those lines.
Right, no problem. Are you sure that I wasn't talking about the outcome of a pregnancy? Because that sounds about right. Like,
absolutely sure. I delivered the flowchart to you in the risk section of the flowchart to you. Here, I'll bring it up on my screen if anyone wants to see. And like we could just go through it again. You could change your last view if you want. I mean,
I don't know if I've got any issues with my view.
Okay.
Like last time, I don't think I made anything. Like,
well, I mean, obviously you do if you're changing it now. Like, if it's completely different from what you answered then, like in the flowchart, you answered yes, no, no, and
so for example, like my position has and always will be that having children is a ethical issue that should be approached as such, but does not have any special case. There's no special case for having children. That would make it like, for example, make antinatalism true, because antinatalism is a universal. It's always wrong to have children, and I don't believe that. That's basically what I'm arguing.
No, I mean, I'm not even making any claims at the end of the day. I'm just asking of your values. Okay, that's the only point where like coherence can actually work from anyways, because there is the benchmark is ourselves, right? Like you agree that it's like, I mean, you don't even have to agree to that. Ultimately, you could think it's objective or subjective or whatever. It doesn't matter. It just sort of starts from the point of like, I guess we'll just start over again since you're being kind of unclear about your old positions. So I was expecting you to be quite obtuse. It's the usual.
Well, we'll see. It's okay. I think I'll try and be as clear as possible. So,
do you want to get behind the PP the hurricane thing?
I think why don't we just go through your thing? I mean, like PP the hurricane makes it sound like some sort of really good boxer, so I don't mind keeping that.
Good what? What'd you say?
Like a really good boxer. So, like in the left corner,
like PP, like Pepe, the the same thing as like dingus hurricanes. I was thinking something like that.
Well,
because it has to do with your genitals, like if you're in control of them or not.
Well, and take it any way you like, but like let's just get into the proposition, shall we?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so risk. So I mean, all right. So do you think that risk happens? Not that I'm not asking you if it's bad or if it's good, or if it's ethical.
Yes,
or
there
if
is
it's
such
not
thing
ethical.
as risk.
There is such thing as risk.
Yes, there is such a thing as a risk.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. So are you okay with the practice of procreation for yourself? And I mean that in theory.
You broke up just at the end, so you mean that, and then you broke up.
I mean that in like practice as opposed to theory. Are you okay with the practice of procreation? Not sure where.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how to. Right. So when you mean the practice of procreation, for myself, I mean, I guess the only issue is like, do you mean like ever, or do you mean in this like exact time in my life? So like,
Well, you could. It just starts from a point of like, I'm asking you for some kind of certainty. If you could just give me like, well, I mean, like, which point do you not understand on the question? Like, which word do you not understand on the question?
oh no, I'm just saying, like you said, do I agree with the practice of procreation for myself? And we had talked about that, how you meant, like whether I would be willing to reproduce, and that's fair enough. The only issue is like, do you mean like ever at all, or do you mean at the specific time? So like, I'm asking like, is it a general question? Like, will I ever, am I okay with reproducing at any point in my life? Or is it like at this moment in time, like right now, would I be okay?
So is which part of the question do you have a problem with exactly? Because I mean, it just says, are you okay with the practice of procreation for yourself?
Then I'm just going to say yes, but not right now, if that makes sense.
Okay, so it's like but you're certain that you may in the future.
I'm certain that I may in the future. Like like if given the right circumstances, I'd be okay with it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I understand. So I have the risk flowchart up on the screen for anyone on my channel if you guys want to check it out. So it's just, you think that risk happens. Are you okay with the practice of procreation? Yes. So you land in natalist, so you're okay with the practice of procreation. Okay with procreation. Are you okay with your future progeny being every possible human being that could ever exist? Now we're getting down to it, right?
No, not at all. No,
Yeah.
of course not. That's why I would want to raise them to have certain values. I mean, that's the point of parenting. Like, you wouldn't just, like, no parent in the world would be okay.
But you're not going to be controlling them, right?
Oh, no,
like, you're not going to be able to control all of your future progeny. You're going to be dead.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So they could be anybody.
Well, I think there is some reason to say that it's unlikely that there'll be like certain people. So, for example, I think that it's highly unlikely that, you know,
sure,
your future progeny will turn into like Adolf Hitler 2.0.
Sure. Well, they could. I mean,
it's possible.
Given enough time, enough time, it approaches 100% infinitely. Like it approaches, it gets to like 99.99999% that you'll make like something that's strongly analogous with Hitler.
I don't think so. I really don't think so, because I think that like that's a very.
I mean, how do you know? Like, can you see into the future?
No. It's more of the fact that like I think that for you to be able to say that it would approach 100%. Like, I agree that I can't know.
Well, that's just a statistical fact. That's a probabilistic fact.
Like, that's what I'm actually disagreeing with. Like, so for example,
given enough time, anything approaches 100%.
What should I call you again, by the way? You SuperHumanDance, but what should I?
You can call me Greg or whatever you want. Greg. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so I get what you're saying. Like, I couldn't know, which I agree with, and I think that's a valid point. But what I'm saying is you couldn't know that the probability would reach 100%, because I would argue that determinism doesn't exist.
Well, I'm not claiming to know.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I'm saying that
So why would you argue with something that I'm not claiming?
Well, because what you said is that the probability will reach 100% eventually.
I said it'll approach 100%. I did not.
I'm saying that there is no that we cannot use a probabilistic discussion to discuss the likelihood of someone turning out in terms of like beyond like a socio-political like climate where we go like, all right, well, people usually don't like, it's not like a deterministic way where you're like genuinely going to have any knowledge of whether someone would turn out to be Hitler.
It really doesn't matter whether it's free will or determined or
it really does. It really
something
does.
in between, compatibilistic. None of that really matters at the end of the day. That can all be granted, right? You agreed that risk happens, not that it's like.
Yeah, I agree that risk happens. Yeah, and I accept that there could be a risk of your future progeny being a bad person.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's, not even ultimately what I'm saying. I'm just asking you a question and you're answering, yes to it.
Yes.
So like you answer yes at the beginning and you're saying, um, so to this, you're saying no, you're not okay. Are you not okay? Or are you okay with your
Um.
future progeny being
Oh yeah.
every
Okay. I'm
possible
okay.
human being that can
I'm
ever
okay.
exist?
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
You are okay with it.
I'm as in like it depends on what if you mean I'm okay with it as in I accept that it's a possibility, but I would try and educate. Obviously, I would try and pass on the values that would make that less likely. As in, I would try and pigeonhole my future progeny into a ethical life. If you get me.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I understand. It's so you're answering yes, then yes. And so the problem is so would you be okay with them being a child rapist?
No, I wouldn't be okay with them being a child rapist. No.
Okay. Okay. So that would be a contradiction of your values, right?
No.
Because you're saying you're okay with the practice of procreation, then you're not okay with your future progeny being every possible, then you are okay, sorry, with your future progeny being every possible human being. And then you're not okay with them being a child
Well,
rapist.
because I would put on a level of responsibility on them, so I would say that they as a human are responsible for their actions, and so should not commit child rape, the same as I would do with anyone else. That they are, rational, capable individuals.
Yeah, but you're not going to control whether or not they're rational and capable individuals,
No,
right?
but we'd have a criminal
You
justice
can't see into the
system.
future.
We can have a criminal justice system. We can have, we can try and parent, and
Yeah, that
raise
doesn't stop
people.
people like Jeffrey Epstein and
You got
all the
people.
people that paid him as well.
Yeah, you get bad people now and again.
And
It's
then
part of the risk.
it's not just now and again, right? Like it's happening. It's approaches 100% chance. Approaches. I didn't say that it was a 100% chance. In probability, it approaches 100% chance. It gets to 99.9999999% chance eventually
I don't think
after a certain
I
degree
don't
of
think that's
generations.
necessarily. I don't think that's necessarily. Like I don't know if that actually, like you said, if we're grant free will, I don't think that actually coincides with free will. But like even if so,
We can grant. I think we could grant all of that stuff. Why don't you think we can grant all that stuff? I mean, it's pretty clear. I think that we can. We like
but
all
then
you're saying at the beginning is that risk happens. It
if you
doesn't
grant free
whether or not it's
will,
free or not.
if you grant free will, and if you grant free will, then talking about the probability of a person turning out, in 4 generations as being, a murderer or something, as being approaching like 100% seems a bit, what's the word? Question begging. It's just like there is no reason to believe that they would. What I could say is like in terms of causal effects upon them, the concepts that they were being given.
Where are you saying I'm question begging?
It's not like so like that the probability of your child becoming the future progeny in like 1,000,000 years, one of them will be a child rapist would approach 100%. I'm saying I don't think that you could make that claim.
Well, I'm just saying it could. It's like it's a.
But then that's not a
could
probability.
approach
That's a
100%
possibility.
chance.
A possibility. So there's a
Yeah, that's
possibility.
what the question says, are you okay with your future progeny being every possible human being that
But
could
then-
ever exist?
yeah,
So
but
it's
then-
perfectly coherent.
Well, that part is fine. It's when you said that they will most like that it will approach 100%. I was saying like no, like that part is like ad hoc. There's no reason to say that they would or would not approach that likelihood.
So you're saying it could go away from that as well. It could go like the opposite direction, like Maximin reasoning type thing.
No, but what I'm saying is that it comes down at the end of the day to the free will of the agent. So, for example, my future progeny, with the
Well, no, it doesn't. Not if you're in control of if you're okay with the practice of procreation. I mean, all this starts from you, right?
yeah,
It
yeah. No,
starts
I
from
accept
your
that I'm
perspective.
like part of
It doesn't start from their perspective.
like
You're part of the chain, and
yeah.
you could stop the chain now.
yeah, you cause their existence, but you don't cause the actions that they commit within their existence. So I'm not responsible for example, if my child committed a crime, I don't go to prison for that.
Technically, you do. But, well, if you agree that it's, your progeny, from yourself, then yes,
But then I don't
would
think like
actually
in
be.
reality when you say your progeny, it's not like progeny. It's not exactly like ownership. It's not that they are actually objects spouted from me. It's that they are their own rational, autonomous
Some
beings.
people think that too. I'm not claiming that.
But they're dumb.
I'm not claiming that they're objects. What'd you say?
I said, but they're stupid, aren't they? But the thing is that like what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, all I can really say is that they're rational, autonomous individuals who make their own decisions. And so if they decide to commit crimes, it's on them. If they decide to be, good people, it's also on them. I don't get the credit for that, Really, all I can do is try to gear someone up to live a good life for themselves and for society.
I think a lot of people would disagree with that.
Yeah, they would. That's a free will debate, though.
People take credit for their children all the time, just the same as like they take people place blame on people for their children all the time.
Yeah, but I think
that would be a big point of contention.
Well, there's like
I
things
think
that
on a larger scale, I think it would favor what I'm saying.
Well, I don't think that it favors anyone. I think we'd have to get into a free will debate about that. But I think that I mean, it's incredibly complex because what we're really talking about there, if we really deep dive into it, is the socio-political phenomena that like develop a human psyche, and then how an individual will approach that in relationship to their own choices. So it's like, I think that you can be responsible for bringing a child in. So, for example, if I know that I live in a society full of cannibals, then I know that the likelihood of, birthing a cannibal is going to be much higher because of the concepts which are going to be causally impacting that psyche are going to escalate. So the available possibilities and probabilities from the individual to act are likely going to push someone towards cannibalism. But it's very possible that you could birth someone who's like, not only not a cannibal, but actively rebels against that. It's the same thing that could happen in our society. You could be the best parent in the world and you could produce a serial killer. It's unfortunate that people like in the
I think there's a lot of speculation behind that, and
I think that's just the way that works. I think that's just the way that like free will.
Well, I don't
works.
think that it's relevant. Is the point?
I think it is, because I think when you talk about probably producing like a serial killer or a child rapist, because
statistically, it is very high.
That's what I'm questioning.
Given enough time,
okay,
which it doesn't seem like there's any like end of the human civilization on the horizon. With any kind of, without like wishful thinking.
Okay, so, but then you could show us the statistics.
And I wouldn't want human civilization to end ultimately first. I'd want like us to get rid of all the, other stuff. But this is irrelevant, right? Like I view this is unintelligible to me. You're obfusing, sort of making it unclear. You're trying to conflict.
You just cut out
free will and determinism, but free will and determinism aren't relevant to the discussion.
No,
right?
it was only relevant because you said that the probability of having a child rapist would approach 100%, which I said was question begging.
Well, and then you agreed at the beginning. Listen, hold on. You agreed at the beginning that risk happens.
Yeah, risk.
But if risk happens, like that happens regardless of determinism or free will. Then if you think that it happens,
risk is 100% a thing, but then saying that something probably will happen is separate from saying that it could possibly happen. So like when we talk about risk, it comes in, there's grades of risk, right? There's like if that's the point I was raising with the society of cannibals.
The reason you don't think that it's a contradiction is because what? Just be really clear for me. Like, what is the reason you don't think that yes, no is a contradiction? For what reason?
Okay.
How is it not a contradiction?
So
because it's a combination of things, right? You're answering yes and then no. The relationship is progeny and procreation. Progeny and procreation are, like they're strongly correlated. You could even say that they're causal, and no one would contest that. Like your progeny are caused by your procreation. So where is your contest against the contradiction that you're landing in?
Okay, so
you're saying that it's not a contradiction. Let me just state clearly the contradiction. It's just okay with offspring and not okay with offspring.
Well, actually, right? The contradiction was, if I may, you said this. You
Either
said
or.
that
Could be,
would I be
above.
okay with the possibility that my child or future progeny could be any possible human? And I said I would be okay with the possibility of them being any possible human, which means that I'd be okay with the like 0.0000001% chance in theory of them being the worst person that could have imaginable, and the same for the best, and that there's probably a gradient in terms of where they would land, and that comes down to their actions and it comes down to our society, and there's a lot of socio-political, kind of
those things are
minutiae.
very unstable.
Yeah.
Societies change all the time.
Yeah, wait one second. I haven't finished speaking, sorry.
Yeah.
So that was like the first point. That was like the second point you said. Like you said, yes. So that was the second yes. The no was, would you be okay with your future progeny being a child rapist? Now, I said I would not. Now, for two reasons in that respect. I wouldn't be okay with them being it because I would hold them responsible for their actions, and I know that they could know better given the concepts that were available to them. They're free autonomous agents and so have committed a wrongful action. And then the second thing I would say is, so in terms of morally, disagreeing with that, child rape is wrong, take responsible for yourself, don't be a child rapist. The second thing I would say is in terms of them, it conflated possibility with an actuality. Am I okay with someone, like the likelihood of let's say the possibility of...
No, you're mischaracterizing.
No, I'm not mischaracterizing anything. You said,
It's mischaracterization. Would you like me to?
No, go for it. Like if I've somehow mischaracterized you, please.
Yeah. At no point am I claiming that it's an actuality. I'm saying that there is the contradiction is it's a 100% risk of a risk. Okay. So that's the actuality. And so you're agreeing to that. You agreed. Just be really clear. You agreed to that at the beginning when you said that risk happens.
So you're saying there is am I okay with the risk of that happening?
Yes.
Yes, I'm okay with the risk of that happening.
Okay. So you're okay with the risk of your future progeny being child rapists?
Yeah, just as I'm very hopeful that they won't be. And I'm also very hopeful that, they'll go on to cure cancer or something lovely as well. Life has risk-reward ratios, right?
Yeah, but look, they that we could get into a whole thing like that. This is sort of just where it lands in is so you are okay with it now. So before you were saying you were not okay with it because you didn't understand that it was a 100% risk of a risk.
It was a risk, not an actuality, which you so delightfully cleared up.
Right. So you're saying that. So you answer yes then in the flow chart. It's on my screen, by the way, on my channel, if anybody wants to see it. He answers yes, then yes, and then to the question of
risk.
Which
is just a restatement of the second question.
Progeny being child rapist, he answers yes as well. He's okay with them being child rapists.
I would like to point out, though, just for clarity, that it is a restatement of the second premise. So the first one was the second one, was, are you okay with the possibility of your future progeny being any possible human? Like the risk of your the risk of your future progeny being any possible human. And I said yes. And then you said, well, what about this specific kind of human? And I said yes. Now, there's two ways I can look at that. You're either restating it
it's
in
not
order
even
for
really
clarity.
A specific type of person.
Right, yeah,
there's all kinds of different people that rape children. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. But it's a specific type of person, as in a criminal, someone that would be condemnable.
No, there's
morally.
actually no really hard data on a caricature.
I'm not saying that characteristics.
That.
I'm saying that their actions, the person that they are, is defined by their behavior, right? Anyway, but the thing is that what I'm saying there is that it's a restatement of the second premise. Now, there's only two ways to look at that. You've either restated it for clarity, or you've restated it for aesthetics.
I'm not making any premises. What are you talking about?
Well, on the flow
There's no
chart,
premises. I just asked you questions. These are your values.
Yeah, but okay, it's a restatement of the second.
You are
question.
the benchmark.
Yes, I'm just saying it's a restatement.
Yourself is the benchmark.
All I'm saying is it's a restatement.
There's no premises. So you're obfusing the whole thing.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that it's just a restatement of the second premise. So that's all. The third, rather than premise, the second question. So it's a restatement of the second question.
Premise?
It's a restatement of the second question.
Well, premises aren't questions.
And yes, I'm aware of that, Greg. There's no need to be like very literal. Like obviously I'm referring to the flowchart from which we are engaged in right now. So
Yeah. So your premises?
no questions, Greg. I've cleared that up.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear.
Okay.
I'm just asking.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'm just saying that it was the same question again, because obviously that is a possible human who would be in question 2 rather. So when we talk about it, there is only really two ways. There's only two reasons that you'd bring that up. There's one for clarity, to make sure that I was well aware that that was one of the possibilities. Or two, you wanted to state it as if I was okay, as in morally accepting of that situation, whilst I clearly am not and would condemn it.
Okay, but you are okay with the risk of the risk.
Yeah, you have risks, and I would not want it to come true. It's like, for example, I'm okay with driving a car. It doesn't mean I'm okay with people running others over.
You could just answer no to the first question then, right? Like you could go back and answer no and just be not okay with procreation. And then you could actually
do that. I don't think
stop the risk 100%. Like it, a lot of people
you could stop risks. For example, like there's risks as part of life. Like, so for example, driving cars, like I don't think that everyone who drives a car is akin to a murderer, for example, or even akin to doing something that was wrong and reckless. But then there is a risk of running someone over when they drive a car. That risk is an acceptable risk, and I think that it doesn't undermine the value and the utility or the value.
So are you saying that is analogous with the first question?
Yes,
driving cars is the same as procreation?
Absolutely.
Okay, so getting in a car is the same as reproducing a human.
In terms of risk. In terms of risk
as well. Well, like, look, so you're saying we could just plug in, are you okay with the practice of driving for yourself?
Yeah,
and
so are you okay with the practice of driving? Are you okay with the possibility of
extremely weak?
Are you okay with the possibility of any incident that occurs while driving on a road? Yes. Are you okay with having a car crash? Yes. And then obviously it's just like, are you okay with risk? Are you okay with risk? Are you okay with risk?
There's a big distinction between like reproducing offspring and driving a car.
Yeah, of course. But what I'm saying in terms of risk, it's analogous.
Right. You're saying it's weak. Yeah. So like, look, technically you're weakly analogous with like your feces, but that's not a great description of your feces, and you, right? Like that's not a great description of you. Okay. So 70% actually of your DNA with feces.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not a really strong argument, right? Like I don't view you as being feces, even though you are weakly analogous with feces. So like the point of what I'm saying here is that we have to have a strong analogy with procreation if we're going to establish say that it's like driving a car. It's got to be strongly analogous, right? And you're not saying that it's strongly analogous. You're saying it's weakly analogous. Even if you are saying that it's strongly analogous, I mean, I could say that you're strongly analogous with your feces because you share 70% of your DNA. You know what I mean? But like ultimately, look, that's irrelevant, right? Because you're not feces, and just like the procreation is not it's not driving a car. All right.
Yeah, I get you. I know what you're saying. I guess the point of analogy was at the point of risk. So there's risks and rewards to driving. There's risks and rewards to having future progeny.
Look, like it's weakly analogous is my point. Okay, weakly analogous.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, let's move to the next point. Sorry.
Well, I mean, if you don't want to concede that point, we could stay on that one. I mean, it's like it's just weakly analogous, right? Like to say that some risk is, it's the same thing as like Norzak the Corn Lord. That was his rebuttals to this, right? Like there have been thousands of rebuttals. By the way, if anyone wants to join, I debate this every Sunday at 12 noon with absolutely anyone who joins. It's 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Anybody can join who contests anything that is being said. If you want to set me up with somebody I do that as well.
Well,
But
wait, you're
yeah,
still
I think
having
that
this
it's weakly
debate.
analogous. Your rebuttal is one of weak analogies.
This.
So you're changing the you know you're abusing here. It's but it's okay. I understand.
Wait a minute. Yeah, you understand. Okay, that's great. So
Yeah.
obviously, so you get the fact that really what I'm highlighting is that all you've done is highlight that there is risks to like the behavior of having children, and all I'm saying is that like yeah, unless there is a difference between what's the difference? I think this is where the argument has to go. You now have to demonstrate, let's say, the difference between let's say one risk and another. And what would justify, for example, the risk of going outside and the possibility? Are you vegan? You are, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so cool. So we would both agree that there is a risk of harming, let's say, insects when we go outside. Unfortunately, it's not something that we can necessarily avoid, or if we could avoid it, would necessarily like impede our subjectivity to such a great degree that it wouldn't be ethical. So
Your mic went out.
Oh, right. So what I'm saying is that the risk of going outside is a negative in terms of the fact that, we could get run over or, we might stand on an insect or, I don't know, some madman might run up and like shoot her or something. It happens, right?
Okay. So you're making an analogy for the first question.
Well, what I'm
right?
well, no, I'm just outlining what risk is. I'm not making an analogy yet. So what I'm saying is that this is just.
Well, that's the only thing you can do in philosophy. Like if I ask you a question, right? If I ask you, are you okay with the practice of procreation for yourself? All you can do is make an analogy of that. And your analogy initially was driving, and you want to abandon that.
No. I don't want to abandon anything. I haven't said anything necessarily other than.
Well, you've changed the subject. That's the equivalent of abandoning it.
No, I'm not changing the subject. I'm entirely on the same subject. What I'm talking about is the concept of risk in ethics. Now, what I'm saying is that all behaviors have risks. So all actions in the world have risks. Okay, they all have risks and they all have consequences.
But do you think that all risks are the same? I mean, obviously
no, I don't.
Right?
No, I don't. Now, what I want to say...
So you think that some risks are strongly analogous with other risks,
yes,
correct?
I think that there are risks that are worse than others.
What is it that you're saying that is strongly analogous with the practice of procreation? Because I don't think you've delivered anything that is strongly analogous with the practice of procreation.
I've never said that there was. No, I think that it is. I think that the act of procreation is a deeply ethical question that one needs to ask themselves. I think that it comes with a lot of risks and a lot of rewards. So it's quite a profound ethical dilemma to be in. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that we should abandon it because it has high risks, if it has high risks and high rewards. What we have to kind of do in this scenario is show that it's an unjustifiable risk to take. And that's the burden of proof that's on you.
No, it's not. I asked you questions. This is all on your own behest.
Yeah, but it's the burden of proof to prove antinatalism is on the antinatalist.
No, it's really on, like, ultimately I would argue that the burden of proof is beholden by the person who is bringing the being into existence, practicing procreation, who's answering the question.
I think that there is. I would agree that there is a burden of proof on the person bringing another life into being as well.
Period. Like, that's the only thing.
No, so I would say that, like, look, the antinatalist is saying that it was always wrong, that they are trying to, put forward a universal principle of human behavior.
I'm not even saying, I don't make any claims. I'm not stupid enough to make claims.
I don't do that. Actually, you're not doing philosophy.
Like, I try to disassociate with myself with most of the antinatalist community because they're mostly deranged and mentally ill.
I don't know. I've talked to a lot of wait a minute. I'd like to posit that, right? Like, so for one, I've spoken to quite a few antinatalists who are
that on my side.
I've spoken to quite a few antinatalists who have been very well educated, very, very intelligent and very capable, and certainly not mentally ill.
Sure, those things are. Well, look, I mean, yeah, I'm sure there are ones that aren't.
And
right?
even if they are mentally ill, I don't think that's a
everybody
justification.
has their own flavor of crazy. Huh?
No, but like, even if they are mentally ill, that's no justification to dismiss someone's position, is it?
No. It's not, but I mean, ultimately, if you are saying that I'm making claims, that is a position to definitely dismiss what you're saying. Yes, because I'm not.
Okay, so you're not making any claims. What you're trying to find out is whether I would personally be okay with having children, possibly one day, and I have said yes. So why is it that?
No, I asked you, are you okay with the practice of procreation for yourself?
And
You
I said
said yes. And then I asked you, are you okay with your future progeny being every possible human being that could ever exist?
And
And
then
you
I
answered
said
yes.
yes.
And then I asked you, are you okay with them being child rapists? And you said yes.
No, I said I'm okay with the risk. It's a restatement of question
Yeah.
2. So all
Well,
you've
that's where,
done, it's what it does is it makes me seem
right.
like I am being, oh yeah, I'm absolutely fine with someone being a child rapist. I'm not okay with someone being a child rapist. I'm okay with the risk of having children and the likelihood that someone in that, group of children very well may go on to be criminals. It's unfortunate. We should try and prevent it. It may well not be preventable, but we should try. That doesn't mean I'm okay with it. It just means that it is a possibility that one must accept if they are to have children.
Yeah, it's a 100% risk of a risk.
So I'm okay with the risk, yes. And now that's the way that you state
And,
it. But what really, that's like a rhetorical
it
tactic.
approaches 100% chance. It's not some kind of trivial risk here. We're talking about
It's not
you
approaching
producing somebody
100%
who
chance.
rapes
And I already
children or who
showed that
gets
was
raped by
question
children.
begging.
I mean, by people.
Unless you can give us a reason why it would approach 100% chance. Like what's the justified position that it would? Statistics.
There's heavy statistics on this. Like it's it's that doesn't even like ultimately that's a factor, like how quickly it will happen. But the contradiction takes place when you're saying it's 100% risk of a risk.
Like one, since there is no ability to predict human behavior, even on a large scale, then there is no way that you could say that it will inevitably happen. So we can't do this in economics. We can't do this in sociology. There is no social science that has been able to predict human behavior. So where are you generating this probability that it will approach 100% from? Because the best social scientists in the world haven't managed to do that.
Because it's that's just probabilistic fact, right?
But it's not. Anyway, that's what I'm challenging. And what statistics as well? Where are they?
Yeah, I've already provided those multiple times on my channel and everything. But my point, so you're stuff to hash out here that you're saying, right? And there's no way to hash all of it out. That's sort of like your strategy, I guess, in a lot of cases, is to just pile it on. But that's fine. I mean, I understand that. It works for some people. I don't know why, but it does apparently. But the whole point here is that there's 100% risk of a risk. Okay, it's not that it's not that there is a even the statistics, even if they were hypothetically, like if they like were pathetic, but they're not, right? Like they're like insane. They're, I mean, obviously it's extremely sad and everything that this stuff happens, but like it's like what I'm saying is like even if they were really rock solid, like 1 in 10 or one, I mean, even if they were even if it was in favor of what you're saying is what I'm trying to say here.
You mean if there was a high likelihood that they would not turn out to be, a negative outcome? Okay.
Yeah. So we could grant what you're saying,
which is where we went last time, wasn't it?
Show that it's totally unintelligible and doesn't make any sense. We could grant what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So we did this last time, didn't we?
100% risk.
We did this last time, didn't we? Where we basically got to the point where there was like a 0.01% chance of the worst possible outcome and like a 99.9% chance of the best possible outcome. And I said that is a justifiable risk to take. Unless you can show me once again that you have an instantiated position which justifies that we should not take that risk.
Well, look, I think that just being okay with a 100% risk of producing people that get child raped is definitely like that's enough.
Yeah, but there's a 100% risk of a risk that every time I go outside, that a meteor may fall on me and like just kill us. It doesn't mean I shouldn't go outside.
Look, if you think that that's analogous with the first question, then deliver it as an analogy to the first question. Don't deliver it like it's some kind of knockdown.
I'm
That's
saying
being said.
no. I'm saying that in
Because
terms of
it's not.
in terms of when we behave in the world, in terms of risk, we need a theory which differentiates certain levels of risk which are acceptable, and those are not acceptable. Now that's what I'm asking. What risks are acceptable?
Meteors dropping on your head is weakly analogous with risk of
what risks are acceptable, which risks are unacceptable is what I'm asking, and why.
Okay. Look, in my view, personally, not like with any kind of, I don't have to justify any of this stuff. And I'm not going to have an argument about this during this thing. I mean, you landed in, I'm guessing you're landing in yes, and then yes. Do you want to stay with that? Like, yes, that you're okay with them, 100% risk of them being a child rapist?
100% risk, 100% risk is 100% of a risk. So like it's a possible, that is the same as number 2.
Number 2? What do you mean?
So question 2 is, are you okay with them? Are you okay with the risk that your future progeny could be any possible human being? And I said, yes. And then you said, are you okay with them being this specific kind of human being? And I said, I'm not okay with them being that human being. Like, as in, I would condemn them and ethically, I would say that they were horrible people that deserve prison. But then there is a risk that they could become that.
I have an entire flowchart for this.
Yeah. So it's a risk. It's a risk. So just to clarify, I am not okay with anyone being a child rapist or anything disgusting and horrible.
Well, you are. You're okay with it for the possibility of it.
No, I'm not. You see, that's what you're trying to frame, and I think it's somewhat disgusting.
To stop it, you wouldn't stop it, right? Like in terms of like procreate.
Yeah, I have 100% chance of stopping myself being struck by lightning to never leave the house. I'm also not okay with me being struck by lightning.
Okay, so do you think you have as much control over being struck by lightning as you do over your genitals?
What? What?
Yeah. What? I mean, you said it, not me, dude. How much control do you have over? Do you want to be PP the lightning rod?
I mean, like, yeah, why the hell not? Look, I look.
The lightning rod now.
Look, I get it. No, I get it. I get what you're saying. Like, you're saying that, like, there is a point. There is a point.
How many times?
Look, there's a point that you're trying to make, and that this is a serious risk, and we have a lot of control over whether we engage in that risk or not. Which I agree. I think that's actually a solid position. Like, look, like, there's some real bad consequences of having children. Like, and we need to consider it carefully whether we do or not. But I think that position, you could come out of that, that deliberation and go, yeah, actually, you know what, it's worth the risk, and that'd be rational.
Okay. I mean, you use this word rational all the time, all over the place. That means like at least 20 different things. So look, all I'm asking you is from your perspective, right? Your perspective philosophy. If you're okay with the practice of procreation for yourself, then are you okay with your future progeny being every possible human being that could ever exist? And then you answer yes. So I ask you, I mean, you could answer no like you did before, and then we could go down that path, but you're changing. So that's fine, though. To change your views is fine. I encourage people to. That's why I'm on here doing this. Like I am like up to being persuaded. It's just that no one has ever persuaded me otherwise. But like if you answer yes, then I ask you, would you be okay with them getting child raped or being a child rapist? You say yes, you'd be okay with it because...
No, I'd be okay with the risk of that possibly happening. There is a separation between would I be okay with it. That's as I said.
The risk. We're talking about risk this whole time.
Then be clear. because it deliberately, and I think it's
So-
deliberate, it deliberately paints the individual as being accepting of a circumstance from which they would be actually unaccepting of, and see it as a negative. They actually see it as like, oh no, this is what makes it a risk, actually, by definition.
Accepting of the condition. The notion that they're not accepting of the condition is incoherent.
No, but no. You see, like,
They
it's
are
what,
accepting of the condition.
Greg, if I may,
Yes.
what makes it a risk in the first place is the likelihood that there would be negative outcomes. Now, they aren't like, when you engage in risk, you aren't okay with the negative outcomes. You do it in spite of the negative outcomes, which is why it's a risk. So when someone says, I'm okay with the risk of, let's say, someone getting run over when I drive my car, that doesn't mean that they actively are okay with someone being run over. It means that they accept that there is a level of responsibility and of how they must drive, and also like how when they engage in that behavior, that there is always the chance that it could happen. Now that's separate to going, oh yeah, well it's okay if it happens. That's a separation. There's the actual, and then there's the risk.
Stick on this point for the rest of the time. I mean, I already view this as being knocked down, but we can do it again, right? So, are you okay with the practice of procreation for yourself? You're making an analogy.
We've already. Can we just move on to the fourth question now?
Particular topic, like, let's just stick to your point. I mean, we could just stick to your point for the whole time.
I really think that I've made my point clear again and again.
No, I mean, I've been clear, right? Like that, I don't view you as strongly analogous with feces, but you share 70% of your DNA
sure?
with,
because you keep saying that.
Yeah, but look, like, practice of procreation is not the same as driving. Practice of driving. Anyone understands that. Anybody that isn't a like crazy person completely understands that. Look, I understand what you're saying. You're saying it's logically the same, right? But something being logically the same isn't like strong, isn't super strong argumentation by itself. It has to also be practical. It has to also be corresponding. Okay. And particularly what you are saying is that it's corresponding. Your claim is that it corresponds. Okay. And practice of procreation doesn't correspond. It's not strongly corresponding with the practice of driving.
So if you, what would you count as strongly analogous in terms of other behavior?
That's one of the main reasons I'm having this conversation.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of asking you, to be entirely honest with you, why you separate it in terms of risk.
That is strongly analogous with the practice of procreation. I don't think there is anything that is strongly analogous with the practice of procreation. Okay.
But why?
And
why?
It's pretty, I mean, unless you want to say that it's strongly analogous. Do you want to say that it's practice of procreation and driving cars is strongly analogous?
I would probably say, like, if I was to take something that was strongly analogous, I would say that maybe it's the decisions made by like medical professionals. I could say that the practice of procreation was similar to that, or maybe the decisions made in government. But that doesn't mean that, like, say, for example, when the government sees a risk, that they should.
This is a lot of stuff. Okay, medical professionals. So practice of medical professionals for yourself.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, like, as in appropriation. So like, in terms of the risks and rewards that, let's say, someone in medicine or in the government, I think the government's a better example, to be honest. So when the government acts in, let's say, let's take whether the UK government acts in a certain way or not, there's a risk reward ratio depending on their actions. Now, there is always a risk of things like war. There's always a risk of things like famine and other horrible circumstances. Now, that doesn't mean that the government shouldn't act, because when they don't act, there is also the risk of other negative circumstances. So there's a compulsion there. Now, then if there is also the risk, if you don't have a child, that there could be negative outcomes as well. There could be, the lack of a younger generation. There could be, and things like that. It's whether those risks and rewards balance out to say that you are justified or unjustified in having a child. Now, what I'm saying in terms of, let's say, like, having a child, I think that we can come to the conclusion that having a child was not, at least, the wrong thing to do. Whether it was the right thing to do or not, it depends on circumstance, but I don't think that you can always say that it is the wrong thing to do. Now, it seems that you want to argue that it...
do that ever. Listen, Lewis, that's a mischaracterization. I never said that during this discussion.
No, but you're
Right.
arguing for antinatalism. Am I correct? Or do you not argue for that?
Well, look, like that, it's even the Wikipedia definition. There's no definitions inside of any books for this stuff. I mean, inside of any, inside of any dictionaries, there's no hard definitions for antinatalism. You're aware of that, right?
Well, I think that the way in which antinatalists approach it, and I think that there is a separation between antinatalism, pronatalism, and simply understanding it as an ethical issue. And I've talked about this with other antinatalists before, and it's been usually agreed.
Meta-ethics and metaphysics, and a lot of times people are too stupid to understand that. So, listen.
No,
like,
I think to be entirely honest with you, some of the antinatalists I've spoken to have been some of the most intelligent people I've ever engaged with. So for example, Seven of Swords, vegan antinatalist, and question mark, like Mark, who's runs the Antinatalist podcast, or Steve Godfrey. All of those guys have been really educated, really intelligent, really good faith. And well, I don't. I think that they're probably they're very smart people. I think they're very smart people.
Yeah, yeah, but they don't get you to say that you're Pee-Pee the lightning rod.
No, that's true. They don't.
Yeah, but you said that. I didn't say that for you.
What's question 4?
I can't hear you. Your microphone's breaking up.
Sorry, what is question 4?
Question 4?
Yeah. What's question 4?
I mean, what they like, do they corner anything that you're saying? No, right?
I think
no,
that they've
don't.
gotten me a lot. Like, so for example, I think Seven of Swords really managed to push some boundaries in terms of make some real headway in terms of talking about the ethics of existence itself. I don't think that necessarily came to the conclusion on his side. Don't get me wrong, but I think that he made some really intelligent points. I think some of the most intelligent points I've ever heard from another interlocutor. Greg?
So look, all I'm asking you is from your perspective, right? Your perspective philosophy.
He said it.